So, welcome to Q&A, QCA, questions, conversations, and advice with RDBX Rob and my absolutely crazy community, which happens to be international. And so the first question today is, what is the best way to learn foreign languages? And we've been actually having fun here because somebody asked me to, oh God, what are you sending us? I'm a little bit afraid. I'm a little afraid of what this is. Somebody's sending us random things. Я тоже могу писать по-русски как американ. Somebody said, wait. You speak French you don't speak French like an American, you speak French like a French person. And I was like, well, thank you. That's very nice. And then I proceeded to like try every American accent I could. I said, it's been like the theme for like the last 5 minutes. And then somebody says, now do it like a Valley girl. Je voudrais très bien voir votre voiture. Ouais, long de séjour. Quand tu es libre. Quand tu es libre, j'aimerais très bien voir ton voiture, mon nouveau ami. I'm not taking my hat off. Sorry. Cheers. This is, by the way, where did you get that mug? How about that question? This is a mug my wife made me oh so long ago, when she was barely getting into pottery making, like long ago. And now she's, you know, the rest is history. I should take paid requests. We should do that. Okay, so what's the best, where did you learn to speak languages? Learn to speak Russian and French. All right, I'm gonna answer the first question. What is the best way to learn foreign languages? The best way to learn any foreign language is to go there and get immersed in the language so that you'll die unless you learn it. That's absolutely the best way to learn it. So particularly if you're European. If you're European, just like, I don't know, get on the train and go to the other country and live there in an apartment for a month and don't promise yourself you're not going to speak your language. I mean, this is a rather short question to answer. The best way to learn the language is to put yourself in a place where you have to speak the language. No brainer. You know what drives me crazy? All right, just a small, don't worry, it's not a huge rant. But this is one of my biggest rants. People who learn foreign language will pay $4,000 to go on a study abroad program and sit with their American roommate in a tiny flat in the middle of France or Russia or wherever. And they won't speak any Russian at all, and they'll be like all scared, and they'll like do things together, and then they will never learn the language because they never dive into it. When I was teaching, I taught. Okay, so this is answering the second question. I mean, the response you need, create the need. You need to create. And by the way, you can do that. Believe it or not, you can actually do that in America. There are certain places in America where you can go. If you're really committed to learning the language, I mean, if you just want to like dabble, then Rosetta Stone or something like it. And by the way, full disclosure, I did create language software in college where I majored in French and Russian. French, I didn't get the major. Russian, I switched over. My French teacher was very mad at me when I did that, by the way. I also taught university level French and Russian. To beginners. I ran pronunciation camps and stuff. And I also taught Mormon missionaries going to the French West Indies, which is where I went on my mission. So the answer to the second question, where did you learn to speak Russian and French? Russian was my major in college. You know, Right Here, Right Now was the most popular song. The Berlin Wall came down, and I said, I don't want to learn computer science. I want to learn Russian, and I want to make friends with Russians, and the rest is history. And we have a lot of Russians in our community, which I really love. Russians and Ukrainians. So just the other night, actually, Friday night, there is a video, Twitch video of me covering the art gala. My wife had some art in a show, and I was there. I was out swinging in a hammock, and I walked around, and I met like a group of like 6 Ukrainians that were playing. They were whatever the thing is where they throw what is it? Those like bean bags into the thing, cornhole, and it was really great. And I got to talk to them. And the Ukrainians have a great accent. The reason I mention it is because there's actually another question here involved. It's like, what do you think of the Ukrainian-Russian war? I think it's an absolute disaster. and I don't take sides so much as to say that what Putin is doing is wrong, period. I strongly disagree with what Putin's doing. There are Russians in my community who think I'm, the devil for saying that. I don't care. There's Russians in my community that are grateful that I'm saying it because they don't partake. Judging all of Russia based on a few idiots who think that it's okay to invade Ukraine is like judging all of America based on everybody who voted for Trump. It would be inaccurate. That's all I have to say about that. I actually spent some time in Ukraine as well. And one of the biggest, most festive, amazing meals I ever had was in Ukraine because they were wining and dining us so that we would buy a cruise out completely because we were running cruises over there. That's what I did. I was a cruise director in Russia, and I ran tours and stuff over there. Lots of fun stories about that maybe I'll talk about someday. I met gun runners. I met mafia. I got to be an honorary bodyguard to Samantha Fox, who was on tour. I mean, I have a lot of stories there that I'll let you guys ask questions about later. I don't normally cover those in Q&A. Who in the right mind would agree to what Putin is doing? Some people do, and they're sick. I look at them as like zombies. There's people that think that what Trump did is okay too, and I think they are also zombies. Good people, they've just been zombified. And I need to remember this, to look at them that way. And if you feel offended by that statement, I'm sorry, but that's how I feel. Anyway, I didn't mean to get political. Samantha Fox, there's the old name I haven't heard about. Samantha Fox in 1998? No, Samantha Fox in 1996 was like wildly popular still in Russia. And she came on a cruise. I'll make a question. How did you meet Samantha Fox? Samantha Fox. This is a true story. I could talk about this story for way longer than we have time. It's one of my favorite stories about going to Russia. So the short story version of it. Yeah. So the short version of the Samantha Fox story is I was a cruise director, and normally that meant I managed, everything on operations on these river cruises we did. And I got a call from our CEO who said, hey, Samantha, this Russian group that's doing the equivalent of the Russian Oscars wants to buy out your ship, wants to buy out the ship and just run the whole thing. But we've got like 6 or 7 Americans that have already signed up for the cruise, and we've asked them if that's okay if they come for it, and they're willing to go. Are you still cool being there and running it? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I ran this one very, very special cruise where Russia's, and I don't remember all the names, but I'm sure somebody in the audience right now would actually know the people that were there. But I had like the top of the top Russian Hollywood starlets and stars and everybody were on the ship with me. And in fact, Samantha Fox was the guest of honor. She was like the foreign, they were really into her. And so she would sing at the thing, and her whole posse actually took over the captain's place up top, which is normally reserved for other people. And I mean, she had like crazy ass parties in there and everything. And I never really got close to Samantha Fox until, and here is the story. This is actually an IT story, believe it or not. I've told this story before, but I want you to hear. So, I mean, I was running all the back show, but I was mostly, coddling these Americans who were just terrified because there was big deals. There was like fireworks off the shore. Every time we would come in at any port, it was there was just huge people everywhere because it was like taking all of the Oscars or something like that, the people in the Oscars, sticking them on a ship and then going to each port and then having every port be a full blown red carpet thing. It was really amazing. It was really fun. And so we kept pulling it, and we felt it was great because we felt like stars. We had like full access to it. Yeah, I did. Yep, you're giving us a spoiler here. But so what I ended up doing was, so they had, she had IT people, she had her whole posse, she had her manager, she had these 2 Russians, this retired KGB guy, really great guy, and his grandson, I think, who were the bodyguards, and that was their posse, right? And I couldn't get anywhere near her because she was like untouchable. She was like the most protected, cool person on the whole ship. And even though I was a cruise director, I had no access to her at all. I was like, and this is the story. So until her guy, actually, her tech guy had a Mac, and the Mac broke. And he couldn't get it back up, and it was like sad macking and all that stuff. And he came to I was kind of bored, and I was in my room because I didn't really have anything to do because the Americans were totally taken care of. They were just playing around doing all kind of things. So I didn't really have a lot of work that trip, which was fun because I could like actually enjoy it. And so sure enough, I get a knock at the door, and there's this guy. No, what was it? No. That was not the knock at the door. That was not it. That was a different thing. It was in the bar, actually. Yeah. I'm trying to remember. We were in the bar, and I was always kind of close to her because I kind of wanted to get into her posse and kind of see what it was like to be a starlet and all this stuff. And so I would go. I was in the bar. It was in the bar in the afternoon, in the middle of nowhere. And she was there for some reason. She was like doing a presentation or a press conference or something like that. And I was sitting just, with nothing to do. That's what it was. I had my Mac. I had a MacBook Pro. I had a MacBook. I had a MacBook. I had a little like roller ball on it and everything. You remember those old ones, 30 megabytes of RAM. 30 megabytes of disk storage. And I was like, working on it, and I was typing away, and I was working on coding or something. And I was just there. I just went there to go hang out because I was bored, and I wanted to listen to the press conference. And it was her tech guy who saw that I had a Mac. That's what happened. And the tech guy came up and he sat down with me, and he goes, "Oh, I see you have a Mac." He goes, "I'm having a problem with my Mac." And that was how it happened. And then we got talking, and I got really tight with this geek. He was a geek nerd, whatever you want to call it. We talked about that yesterday. And so I ended up fixing his computer. He goes, my computer's sad macking. Can you help me? And he brought it down, and I helped him boot it up and get it all fixed up and everything. And I totally saved the day, and his whole Mac was working about that. And so I don't remember how it happened, but sometime that day or the next day, I got an invite from the guy, and he goes, yeah, well, Samantha like to have you at her dinner. And so they would take over a bar. There's bars on each edge of the ship, and she would take over a smaller bar that had like a dining area and everything. And she was locked up, and there was like security outside of it and everything. And she had this huge, Russian style dinner with like tables next to each other and like 20 people around. And we were on this big long tables, and she, I'll never forget, she was sitting next to her best friend who was also her manager, and other people in her group, and this tech guy. And the tech guy was sitting there at the end, and so I sat down. And I was super nervous. You got to understand, I was like a really naive Mormon, who was sitting with Samantha Fox, who I had no idea why she was famous. It was her boobies and her talent, but kind of in that order. Anyway, so, and so she, if you don't know, Samantha Fox posed nude on the cover of a British magazine, and she just skyrocketed to the top of fame. She was a talented singer on top of that, but she got really crazy popular after that. Anyway, so knowing that, I was a little nervous because I was Mormon and everything. And so I sat down, I just minded my own business. I was just kind of eating and trying to be, polite and everything. And so out of nowhere, we're just eating and stuff, and out of nowhere, she directly addresses me from the other edge of the table, like way down there. She goes, so Rob, is it? And I said, yeah. She goes, this is dramatic. I don't remember all the exact words, but she said, so I hear you helped whoever, with his Mac. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate that. Just want to give you a thank you. And it was like, yes, here. And they're all like happy, and they're like saluting me and stuff. And I felt kind of, I felt good. I felt really good because I had been given this opportunity because of tech. I my Russian and everything. And then she says, what? I did not get into a random apple. No, not at the time. And so she goes, and she was kind of awkward for a second because she didn't know how to continue the conversation. She just wanted to go on about eating and stuff. She goes, so Rob, so tell us about yourself. And I go, so where are you from? And I'm getting it totally wrong, right? The accent and everything. And then she said, I'm from Utah. She goes, oh, Utah. Do you know Jimmy Osmond? Jimmy's great. I went to Jimmy's birthday party. Oh my God, that party was off the hook. It was amazing. And I'm gotta remember, I was Mormon. If you don't know who Jimmy Osmond is, Jimmy Osmond is like, the hellion little brother of Donny Osmond. If you go back and look at the YouTube on him, he's really funny. And he, you know, he was really off the, you know, and she said, "Oh yeah, it was a great party. Yeah, Jimmy threw a great party. It was a lot of fun." I went, "Oh yeah." I was like, "Oh yeah, that's Provo or something." Yeah, I think that was where it was. And she's like, "He was amazing. Thank you very." And I'm like, you know, yeah, but she like asked me as if maybe I knew him. Oh yeah, I'm hanging out with Jimmy Osmond all the time. No. The Osmond Brothers, no. Yeah. Don't confuse them with the Allman Brothers. Different band. Anyway, so after that, I got to hang out with them all the time. And Samantha was always very, I mean, she treated me like everybody else in the posse. She was like in control all the time, right? But the thing that was really great is, Jimmy, no, I didn't. So we would go to the band. So they would always go to the pub on the other side with the big dance floor. And the security guys would block off a part of the dance floor for Samantha Fox and her crew and everybody to go out there and dance, have a good time, and not be accosted by the lesser movie stars. Because the crazy thing is all the people on the ship were like top-notch movie stars from Russia that I had no idea who they were, and so they were like unable to like get to Samantha to dance with her, but they wanted to be next to her because they wanted to think it was cool and they were Hollywood and blah blah blah. And by the way, one of the Americans that was there was a river guy in his 70s who bought like 2 bottles of ginseng and had like 2 Russian hookers on both arms everywhere he went. I was like, I don't need to take care of that guy. Everywhere he went, he would come out. I remember I was walking through the hallways once, and he like came out of one of the Russian rooms, and he had both of the girls like right there, and there was no, I mean, you know. But he's like, "Oh, you got to get this ginseng. It's really good stuff." The guy had like leathery skin. It was like an inch thick because he'd grown up in the sun. He owned a river guy. He was so funny. I loved the dude. He was so crazy. QA Nights. We are really off topic, yes. But how did I meet Samantha Fox? Because that was with the Russian thing, and that became another talk about this. We'll get back to the other stuff. So the last part of the story was I got to go dance all the time. It was really great because I got to walk right past the line. And the guys would be like, "What's up?" And they let me come in there, and I could like go in there and shake my booty with, you know, Samantha and her friends and everything. And I was married. My wife wasn't there. My wife was not. She wasn't with me that year. She didn't go on the ship at all. I'm divorced from her now, obviously. And she anyway. So I didn't do anything bad, but Samantha kept trying to set me up with her manager. Yeah, she kept trying to like, you should go say hi to what's up, and I'm like. And she was really shy, and I was really shy. She was really cute and everything, but I was like, "No, married, I'm Mormon. I can't do this." And then the other part of the story is that the guys, I got to talk to the Russian to the guys, so the bodyguards, and they were impressed I could speak Russian because American speaking Russian, you don't really have to do much more than that. And then to impress them, and they said, "We're going to make you honorary member of the thing." So I put on my suit and everything, and we would do the concerts, and they would tell me what to do, and I would go like stand at the door. This. I had no training whatsoever. This dad, this dad thinks I didn't get, yeah. But you know, it was like, it was really fun because they let me go backstage. They're like, "Well, how are we going to get him backstage?" Because he couldn't hang with her. I mean, she did huge concerts, you know, like because the Russians were really into it. And she would do these huge full stage concerts with like pyrotechnics and everything. And I was like, well, I kind of want to go. And I would be up there on stage, and like the 5 Americans that I was supposed to be babysitting and taking care of, they were in the audience, and I could see them like huddled together in this little crowd. And like, yay! They're like, "Go Rob!" And I was just sitting around behind the stage while Samantha performed, just like watching the stage. I would give anything for video of that. I've searched high and low for video of that tour because it was a big deal. I mean, it was a big deal. It got filmed. It was on national television in Russia and everything. And I haven't been able to find it. If anybody actually ever finds the Samantha Fox tour from like probably 96 or 7, I would say. If anybody actually finds footage of that, I seriously, I would pay good money for it. I would love to find that again if I could see any of it, any sign of it, because I mean it was a really interesting experience. It was one of many in Russia that I had. So learning languages, learning technology opens doors. That's the moral of the story there. And that's how I met Samantha Fox, because I fixed her tech guy's Mac. Helped him fix it anyway. Other boring questions. Okay, so let's. I have like things about what's your goals with the home lab and stuff like that. I don't know if you want to hear those. Do you guys want to hear that? I'll put that back here in a second. We have the thing about the terminal. Any other questions? Let me go. Actually, we had some questions from the studio audience. Oh, here's a good one. When do you put a programming language on your resume? Speaking of languages, I have a question too. Do you think it's easier? This question for you. Do you think it's easier to learn programming languages once you've learned a foreign language, more than one foreign language? What do you think? What do you think? What does everybody think? So the question is it easier to learn programming languages if you are good with foreign languages? I think there might be some connection, but I don't have any proof of that. I want to, based on English, yeah. I mean, the whole thing about syntax and order and grammar, I think the answer is probably no. I used to think the answer was yes. And the reason I'm going to say the answer is no now is because, hey, how's it going, Wama? So if you learned the foreign language by studying grammar and syntax and predicates and all that jazz, then I think the answer is on the yes side. But if you know multiple languages through osmosis, like most people do, most Americans can't even tell you how their language is formed. You tell them, you ask them to what a tense is even, or a predicate, or an adverb, and they can't even tell you what they are. They just use the language. They just communicate. They just know it. They don't have to talk about how it's used, right? Most Russians, if you were to ask them about, sklanenie, which is, a declension, which is one of the hardest things about Russian, and Latin, by the way, is that, most of them don't know. They don't know what it is. They just know how to speak it. They know it sounds weird if you say the end of the word a different way, depending on how you're saying it. They don't. It's more of a sort of an AI thing. They've just heard it said so many ways, so many times in a specific way that they just repeat it that way. They really don't know why. So based on that, I think that most people that speak foreign languages, more than one more foreign language, have learned it through osmosis, and therefore that does not impact their programming ability. Yeah, I don't think that there's a strong correlation. I used to think that there was, but I don't think there is anymore. I do, however, think that people who are tuned in audibly to things, so like musicians, my experience has been that musicians who learn a foreign language, the kind of musicians who are tuned into audio things, they tend to do better because they're able to deconstruct the sounds and reproduce them, things like that, but not always. But when do you put a programming language on your resume? How about that question? Somebody said when you write a compiler. If you've written a compiler in a language, then you can put it on your no. I think that's like way too much. Tonal languages like Thai, I would expect, yeah, too. But when it comes to programming languages, when are you ready to put it on your resume? Honestly, I think that if you could write a minimal program in the language, the most minimal that it's suitable to put on your resume. Because first of all, I don't think you should list programming languages by themselves on your resume. I think there's a mistake in there. I mean, I'm a huge fan of putting no bullet points that don't have measurable metrics in them. Let me give you an example. So instead of saying I'm a fast learner, saying something like learned the essentials of Haskell in order to produce a modified Pandoc plugin to convert, 20,000 documents from Markdown into something else. So the more specific, learn Kubernetes in 10 minutes. Yeah. One day would be beneficial. We do that. The boost, part of the boost is going to be get a job and make contacts and all the stuff necessary from a work perspective. It's the last thing we do in the boost. It's the absolute last thing. It's a boost. I'm going to push the boost again. So the boost is every Sunday from 2 to 6 p.m. Eastern time. You want to join us. There is a second playlist on my YouTube if you want to go watch that. It's all free. Of course, I appreciate your support on Twitch and GitHub and any other sponsorship you want to give me, but it's just my way of giving back. And anyway, so that is a piece of resume advice that kind of precludes this sort of idea of what language should you list, right? I don't think it's a good idea to just list out all the languages you know, because it leaves the person reading it with a question. What the hell does this mean? Did you look at Rust once and now you think you know it? They want to know what you did. And again, the resume is, again, getting a job is all about trust. I'm going to say it again. Getting a job is about creating a relationship of trust with the person who's going to pay you, because you're going to help them in some way. You're going to do something for them. And therefore, the resume is the primary instrument. By the way, the resume is meant to be a trolling instrument. It's not meant to answer all the questions. The resume is meant to let them wanting more. The resume is meant to give them really amazing, very specific, convincing proof initially, and they're going to read it and they're going like, I want to hear more about this. Come tell me more. That's the point, because the whole point of the resume is to get you to have an interview. And if you can't have an interview because you told them everything about yourself in the thing, and you're like, oh, I didn't put everything I've ever done on my resume, then you're doing it wrong. I mean, at a certain point, a CV is kind of a different instrument, right? A CV is an exhaustive listing of everything you've done. It's more academic. It's designed for a different audience. But your resume is, yeah. And your resume is really, if you don't like self-evaluation, by the way, the best way for you to do it is to get stats. So one of my bullet points on my resume is created a core protocol using GPG and HTML over TCP/IP to coordinate audit compliance for 52,000 Unix systems for Fortune 100 companies. That's one of my bullet points. And the more specific, the better, because then they want to hear about it. In my opinion, they're gonna want to bring you in. They're gonna want to talk to you about it. They're gonna tell us about this. Like, what happened? How did you do that? What caused you to think about that? Why did you do that? All of those questions are there. If you say generic things that everybody says, you're just going to be like everybody else. Which means that you need to produce activities that are going to, like, the question is, what is it, how do you put it, when do you put the programming language on your resume? You put the programming language on your resume when you have done something in the language worthy of being on your resume. That's the short answer. And not before. So, and by the way, there is nothing wrong with saying explored Rust by creating a, terminal based application that did whatever. And that's a very valid bullet point. That means you're exploring different languages. You may not be, proficient in it. It may not be your main thing, but you're showing that you're like reaching out, and you're quantifying the stuff that you're doing so that you can get them to bring you in. What is Civic, non-evil corp? The I can't ask you that, answer that question. Please don't dox me if you know. If you don't dox me, please don't dox me if you know. I do not share my employer online. Can I please admit you into the under the stage? Where's the stage? Matt's got stuff to say here. We gotta invite Mr. Shells. Mr. Shells, I'm inviting you. Where are you? How come it's not working? All right. Welcome, Matt. One of our regulars in the house. Are you there? You have something to say about that?
Nothing to say. I just been waiting so long.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's good to have you here. Anybody else who wants to join us that I know, I have to know you. You're welcome to come join us so you can get a word in edgewise. I'm Dustwolf says, you still have me thinking about languages of languages. For example, opcodes like move, MOV mean move. In Russian, it's close to shug or benevog in German. And my reason is that I would expect that they would have used something similar to the language it was created there for. Interesting. ASCII is based on English, unfortunately. That's very true. Good point. Good point. So yeah, so putting a language on your resume is a matter of putting a project on the resume in the language. And you have to decide whether that project is worth the space. If you don't have a lot of, if you don't have a lot of experience, then some of those things you did in your personal, by the way, I'm going to answer another question here. Should I put personal projects on your resume? And the answer is hell yes. Because personal projects are the way that you demonstrate your interest in a topic. It doesn't mean that you're not interested in it if you don't have a personal project on it. If your personal projects are relevant, and that means coding for FOSS or anything like that, you should definitely put that there. People all the time say, well, a lot of people are experimenting with different languages, Go, Rust, Haskell or something, because I don't do it. Well, I didn't do that at work, so I didn't put it on my resume. But that's stupid because you want that on your resume. It shows that you're exploring new things and that you're willing to learn, and that you may even get to talk about, your crazy home lab that you built. That is going to show that, you actually like doing those things. I don't think you have to like doing things to get a job doing those things, but in the tech world especially, it goes a long way if you do. Maluba says, ooh, look, I love this one. Wrap to C++ deformable segmentation algorithm using a C# into an XYZ platform. Whoa, yeah. That's a great line item. See that? That's a good idea. Oh, here's a good question. How much time I got? Where's my 7:02? We got to 30 minutes. Okay. Question. I'll put this one in here since we're talking about these things here. This question is, can I ask some advice as a guy trying to get a career? I live abroad, have no network, and don't know which companies to apply or avoid. That is such a tough situation to be in. How far in stuff did we get? We're recording right now. We're recording the Q&A thing. We'll talk about stuff later after this. We didn't get installed, but we're getting close. We learned about Ceph admin, some stuff. Do people want to, do we want to make a question about that? You do have citizenship? Okay. So the question right before us now is, how do I start a career if I am living out of the country, have no network, and don't know which companies to apply for or to avoid? What do you do with that? I want to ask you. This is a question I'm going to open to the group before. Do you have any opinion on that, Matt? Anyone else? Because I have opinions on this, but
I don't have anything. That's a difficult question for me to answer.
Yeah, I think this is one of the hardest questions of all. In fact, usually when I talk about networking and okay, so to network, just say no. Could I ask any advice? If you have, the jobs are created through trust, and primarily, and I'm the only one saying that. There's a lot of people who say that. Leon, Learn with Leon comes to mind. He's helped hundreds of people get jobs, and you can't do that without a network of people that you meet. So
I'd agree with you 100% on the trust thing.
Yeah.
My current company, they started me off part-time, and within 2 years, they've trusted me enough to promote me up twice. So yeah, trust goes a long ways.
Yeah. Yeah, because they know you're going to put the concerns of the company first. And it's much easier to manage a person that they trust. Bottom line. Let's see. Homo says it's not about what you know, but who you know. It really is. I hate that that's true. I really hate that that's true. Every job I have ever gotten, except for the cruise director job and the river guide job, was from somebody new I knew, and that includes my bike shop job, and you know, my IBM job, and all of them. They were all people that I knew. The Nike job. Uh, yeah. So I think I think that the answer is, as hard as it is, if you want to work abroad or in America or wherever you want to work, you have to have a network with people who work there. And I don't know how you can figure that out. You know, there are a lot of places you can go, uh, and you can, you know, you can look for that job, but it's going to take time, um, for you to make those connections. It's particularly hard to give this advice because I know people. I've worked with people over, you know, 8 or 9 years trying to help them get jobs, many of whom did not deal well with people. They didn't like people. They didn't want to be around them. And so I, as a private mentor, I would organize groups. I would literally stick them in my van, and that sounds weird, and we would drive to these Linux meetups, and we would meet these new people, and I made friends and with Q Software, which is an organization here in Davidson, and I actually meet the CEO and everything, and I got to really meet them, and I was like, you know, I'm private mentoring all these people, but they have a hard time, you know, making connections and everything, and so I was able to sort of form that bond and say, well, you know, pick from any number of my kids here. It was mostly kids. I mean, they were all under 30, and they did. They did. They picked up, you know, 3 or 4 of them. So, if you and a couple of them were not really able to express themselves. One of them, actually, I presented on some things and into the Linux meetup, and I invited him up to present with me. And so he went up and he presented with me at the meetup, right next to me, and I let him do the talking and stuff. So if you are not one of these people who likes a group or who likes to talk to people, who likes to present and create those networks and all that stuff, then get a wingman or a woman. You know, get somebody, perhaps somebody more senior than you, who has you know, not your mom and not your dad. You can't. I mean, that doesn't usually work. I mean, sometimes it does. It worked for Bill Gates. It worked for Steve Bezos. And I mean, Joe Bezos, Jeff Bezos, and a bunch of others. All of them had their parents help seed their capital. Bezos got a $250,000 loan from his mom. Gates got the Microsoft contract because his cutthroat mom forced IBM to give him the opportunity. Go read about it. So sometimes it is the parents that are like breaking the barriers down that are doing it. But if you're on your own, sometimes it's easier to team up and find somebody, and you know, through Twitch and through YouTube and these places. I mean, this is the way we meet people now. So, true story. I got into Second Life because I didn't want to drive 60 minutes to a Ruby meetup. I didn't want to. I didn't want to drive to a Ruby meetup, and so hey Vera, how are you doing? You can come on in on the chat if you want to, Billy. And speaking of getting jobs, by the way, Billy, do you mind if I share the story? Vera, do you mind if I share your story of how you helped me? Do you mind if I share that? I want to ask you before I do publicly. I mean, he may not want to share it. But go ahead. Okay. So we're actually blessed by the presence of one of my favorite streamers of all time and human beings, Billy Vera, who is a great person all by themselves, but and is doing really crazy, amazing things right now that I will not dox. God, I want to though. I want to dox you so bad. I want to say all the awesome stuff you're doing. And Billy's got his hand up. We'll have him come on in here. I'm going to give him a hard time. Here, come on in, Billy. You there?
Hello.
Hello.
Good people.
So we're talking about people are talking about being, the question before us is trying to get advice from people who live abroad and have no network. How do they get a job? And I'm going through my normal spiel.
Networking online.
Networking online. And to that end, as luck would have it, Billy, who was a little bit fashionably late to this stream, got me this job. Please don't say the name of our company, Billy.
I don't know the name of the company anymore. I haven't worked there in so long. I forgot it.
Okay. So Billy and I were up late just doing random things and, tech things on Twitch. And Billy's been one of our regulars for years and helping me set up my chat server, all these amazing things. He's been a really great help. And because he knows so much more than I do when it comes to so many technology operations things.
I really
well,
don't.
I mean, I think we complement each other, but yeah, I mean, so it's been really fun to be friends with Billy. But more than that, Billy's like, because I needed a job because of the whole COVID thing. I was like, yeah, I'm going back to corporate. He goes, well, let me help you out. And Billy put in a good word for me to the manager. I had an interview with the manager, which was relatively informal. The only formal thing about it was I had to have my camera on, and I got the job. Surprisingly, both that manager and the person who did the interview with me are gone now. They went on to other things, and Billy's since gone on to other crazy, amazing, awesome things too, which I can't talk about. And so I'm kind of left behind. It just so happens that Billy's replacement that they hired is also gone now. So, but I really love it.
My replacement was awesome, though. My replacement nailed it hands down, knew more than I did. It was great.
Well, I mean, I've done what I can over there, I've said this many times openly. The team I'm on now, the dynamic of the team it's changed quite a bit actually, and it's relatively. I've been doing a lot on the badge side, by the way. Please don't. We won't get into details. Let's don't use names. But
no, I know nothing.
But it's gotten better. Yeah, I mean, there were challenges when we were there on the team, and we worked through them, and some of them were harder to deal with than others. But I really I talk about it all the time. I really love my team right now because of the atmosphere that we're in, that we have going on now. Mostly because
I'm actually not even working right now.
What's that?
I'm not even working right now.
Oh, you're not working right now?
No.
I thought you were doing. Okay, I'm not going to talk about that.
No. So I was doing a lot of work like we talked about before, but I stopped working because of we're dealing through a huge custody case, and that actually affected my security clearance. And
wow.
So I sat there. I talked about it. I was like, well, I have enough money. I don't need to work right now. I can take off the next month or the next 6 months or a year. And so we decided I'd take off the time and spend the time with the kids.
Yeah.
And get to know her better and her, and just
You're getting recorded for YouTube. I just wanted you to know that. So
yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I remember that part of your story, and I remember that you didn't need to work for reasons we won't get into. So,
yeah.
Yeah. Which I mean, yeah, considering the offers that you've had in the past and everything. So, bottom line, people are their best way to get a job. That's what I'm trying to say.
95% of my jobs through knowing someone, and I usually change jobs once a year.
Me too.
On average.
And you're not particularly a personable person. I mean, I love you, but
no, I'm not personable at all. Even my fiance says that.
I know. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like you don't have to be an extrovert and a great people person to get a job and meet other people. You just need to find your people, and there's lots of ways to do that. But online is really the way, I think, and Twitch is literally the way I got my last job. It's kind of cool that we get to talk about that.
And really when it comes down from finding jobs, especially I've hired people. I had one of my really good friends. He's now a good friend of mine. At the time I didn't know him that well. Yeah. I met him through IRC, and he lived in Egypt. And
IRC, really?
And so I had hired him at the company to do our night support because I was doing his daytime. So things like that, especially with startups, are a great way of finding jobs to work at because you never know who you're going to find, and on top of that, you never know who they're going to know. Yeah. I've helped people before where they've needed jobs. I've known them from overseas. Where I'm like, hey, I don't know of anything at my place, but you know what? Here's a buddy of mine who's looking for something that might fit.
Absolutely.
It happens that way.
Yeah, and that's how it's been for the people that I've helped place and everything. It hasn't necessarily been the direct person, but then I make friends, and then they call in and they go and get their job.
But here's number one thing to remember. Do not expect any friend online to put their word out or their name out for you. I didn't for Rob. and I wouldn't for anybody. I sat there and said, I know a guy who's pretty good. This is what he knows. You review his credentials. I'm not going to be there because I don't want to be seen as changing the interview process.
Yeah, and that's the way it should be.
Interview for him on the merit.
Yeah, and that's the way it absolutely should be.
Right.
Yeah, I think that you should do that. It is a little bit hard too, because sometimes you'll have somebody ask you to put your name in for a job because they know you work someplace, and you're like, I've had people stress my trust a little bit on that before because I felt like they weren't particularly ready. But you know, my recruiter, same recruiter by the way, Billy, you know, he calls me every month. He's like, "Who do you got for me?" And I'm like, I'll send him, you know, resumes. I say, "Look, I have, you know, I'm not vetting this person, but I'm, you know, these are people that are preparing for that kind of job," and then you can make that decision. So, but that's
the way to do it.
And it bypasses the HR process.
Don't expect anybody
to
vouch for you. I will vouch. I have talked to you online. I will vouch that, you know, maybe you should some good skills in this or that, but I don't know that you know them because I don't know what you are doing behind the scenes.
Oh, right.
So that's why you have to be able to do it yourself. You can't expect any of us to do it for you.
Right,
That's
and
not
that's
a bad thing. And I've told people that have vouched for me, don't vouch for me. Vouch that you know me, whatever else, and I can hold my own on my merit.
Yeah.
But all I need is that first foot to get past HR. That's the hardest thing, to get past HR to the hiring manager, and that I believe in helping anybody out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you should give this person an interview, let them show you what they know. You know, and I've seen what they know to some degree and enough to like tell you that, but that's all. And you should make your own decision. And we've talked to other people who've hired, actually. They're not here today, but we've had a lot of other people that are in hiring positions, and they've said the same thing. Almost all of them have said the most important thing to get yourself a job is demonstrated experience. So if you can show, like, in one specific case, someone said that they would take someone who ran their own home Kubernetes lab over somebody who had a CKA certification any day.
I would in a heartbeat.
Yeah. And
in a heartbeat.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's good to have both, but you know, but the actual experience and the, you know, going through the hard work of like putting things out there and stuff.
Question for you, Rob. Do you think that certifications are coming back around?
I think that certifications in the operations space have always been more beneficial than some of the other ones. I wrote a Why Certify video.
I'm talking about just straight experience. Sorry.
I'm sorry, straight what?
Experience.
Just experience?
Yeah, there's experience plus certification.
I do. I think experience is still going to be a thing. I think I don't have any reason to know. I don't have enough information, but no, I do feel like hiring has gotten lazier lately.
I do, and that's the same reason. I'm starting to blow through the AWS exams, and I'm going to blow through the Google ones. Well, I have time off during the day now. Yeah. I've already taken 3 of the AWS and passed them.
Yeah.
And I spent about a week studying for them.
Yeah.
But I did it because they literally told me that I talked to a recruiter who said that they're adding 20% on to any initial job offer if you have the certification.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe
that.
I was
like, well, in that case, it's stupid not to, because I could have them in a month. And I don't expect everybody to have them in a month. Remember, I've actually used EC2 since the day it came out. I was actually one of the very first people that got on the public for it. So I've used the AWS for that long. So I've been going to blow through all the 3 major cloud providers and see what I can do.
Yeah, I think that's probably wise. The hiring people are getting lazy, honestly. In the operations space, I think that they've gotten a lot lazier. And so anyway, I don't think, I used to, especially in operations. Now, if you're going to go get Java certified as a developer instead of making a bunch of Java code that shows you know Java, I agree with that woman who posted that thread, who was a Google hiring manager, that said that can actually work against you. Maybe not so far as to say that, but that means that you believe that, you know, getting a cert over learning Java and showing people you know Java is more valuable, and that's stupid. So it just depends. But in operations and in hacking and security and stuff like that, I mean, security, they're required. You know, there's a lot of companies, most of the security jobs, particularly the government-y kind of stuff, they have to have it. Yeah. So I absolutely hate certifications. I let my Kube certifications lapse. I didn't go for the tests. I think I could probably do the test, but I absolutely despise tests. I'm so terrified of tests.
No, it was funny.
What's that?
In the early 2000s, we used to actually have it be a negative if you had a college degree in computer science.
Wow. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I know, according to the stats from Adam Ruins College, that people with a college degree in America make 30% more at every stage in their career. So the advice, which was surprising to me, is to actually get a college degree. If you're not going to go into $250,000 worth of debt, by the way, but to not go to a big ass college, but to go to a local community college or everything, because they don't care. Because at places like Bosch, which I happen to know directly because I talked to people that work there, they won't even look at your resume unless you're a graduate from college. You have to have a college degree. It could be the local community college, and you could have basketball degree, and that will count. And then you prove yourself other ways, through all the other stuff. But they won't. There's this like HR filter that says that they won't talk to you for IT.
What up, buddy?
What's that?
Kenny, what? I was saying, hey. No, and I completely agree with that. It's funny. I'm actually pushing my fiance to get her degree and everything. I'm putting her through that. But one of the things, like, I agree, and so everybody knows, too, I don't have a degree. I think I had a half a semester in college. Yeah. But the one thing I did have is I was prior military, and a lot of places will take that.
Yeah.
And my understanding from talking to HR people was that it's not so much that it shows that you can, that the degree is good for anything. It shows that you can stick it out for the time in it.
Absolutely.
Military or the degree is kind of equivalent in that way. And as long as you have the experience on top.
Yeah, I don't like that that's true, but I've heard that so many times at this point that people, they want to see that you've completed that phase of life, that, you've shown that, you're an adult enough to do those things. And I think it's BS, but it doesn't matter because that's what the perception is.
And that's the perception from HR too, not from hiring managers.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
You can network past HR.
I think that's
past HR, you're okay.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I'm so glad you said that. The stuff it takes to get past HR is 100% different than what it is to get the job and produce trust with the person who's actually going to hire you and work with you. A lot of these techniques to get past HR are just that. I remember to this day when I interviewed actually for the position you helped me with, that they said, "Oh, don't worry about that," and because the manager behind the scenes was manipulating HR to get it to all jive. Because they have their own HR rules, and he said, well, don't worry about that. I'll make it happen. Because, sometimes there's a lot of friction, even when you know somebody in the company who wants to hire you. And then there's places where they have to, also post it. HR can't tell if a candidate is good. No, they can't. They have no way of knowing. So, and their job is to filter candidates out. They'll get yelled at if they give you candidates that are not, there. So the certs and the degrees and, those the HR is not, they can't, the algorithms that they use are not going to allow them to go through and read your personal projects and see if you're a good candidate. They can't do it. It's really hard to get in there. I mean, Chris Nova, for example, very publicly in a Twitter thing, I'm going to say this because she was public about it. Chris Nova did not get a job at Google because she didn't have, the academic qualifications. And she openly tweeted about this. But then she went on to be one of the most well-known, most recognized people in all of the Kubernetes landscape, an author, a presenter, an all-around great person in the whole cloud native world. And but she, like you, Billy, she didn't have any background at all. I mean, she didn't have any academic background.
Educational, yeah.
And but some people think that's a plus. And she also probably didn't have the debt. So, I mean, Nova is amazing. She is amazing.
No, absolutely. And one of the big things, this is what we used to look at the academic background. And I'm not saying it's the correct way to look at it, but it's how we used to look at it early on, is that if we had somebody coming straight out of college, it took us a minimum of 6 months to a year to untrain them so that they would actually work properly.
Oh,
because
right.
Especially for programmers. You have this thing that you have to document every function, and you spend as long documenting the function you do it, you spend writing it. Well, if your function is to add two numbers together, you don't need documentation to say that's what it does.
Right.
You need the headers, you need that type of stuff. But you don't need to go into full documentation on it. But people that are coming out of college are doing that because that's what they've been taught to do.
Yeah, they are. They're learning things. They're learning single inheritance in Java and things like that too. Not all of them, but there's a great comment here. Let me read this. So, No Cuts No Master says, Google used to be really strict with this. I remember reading that they only hired from Ivy League with 4.0 GPAs. They have loosened up a lot since then. You know, it's funny you say that because they actually, I remember reading something that said that Google and a number of other companies, and not FANG companies, but a number of others signed an affidavit that said that they no longer required a college degree to work there. They just required sufficient experience. IBM, of course, very famously said that. So yeah. I do have a question here.
Google's come way down.
I'm sorry?
I think Google's come way down. I actually live, and I don't mind saying this out loud on the record because I say it everywhere, but I live in Seattle. And I have, within a quarter mile of my house, I have Amazon, Google, Facebook, and Starbucks headquarters.
Oh, wow.
And so all of them, and they all hit me up at least twice a week trying to hire me. And I don't have a degree, and I'm very, very specific. I don't have a degree. And they all understand that. But they look at the background at that point in time and say, we don't care about that anymore. Yeah. So it used to be very, very specific that you had to have a degree, not anymore.
Yeah, my wife made it. Yeah, they do. They do. And that's good. That's good. I again, the question is for this expat who's got it. So I hate to say it, but you either got to move here or you got to like make friends with people who are here. And one way to do that is online. Another question, last question for tonight. How do you stop all of the random recruiters from contacting you on LinkedIn instead of actual companies you want to work with directly?
You don't. You don't. I get on LinkedIn, I still get anywhere from 10 to 15 a week. And I have a job. I'm not looking, everything. Yeah. Every one of them says, if you are looking, let me know.
Yep. And this says here that this person gets 30 offers a week. I feel like I have a job to respond to each. It's like getting junk mail. I don't like recruiters anymore. So let's talk about the recruiter question for a second, because I want to really talk about recruiters. First of all, I think every IT professional needs a recruiter, myself, particularly if you have problems with social skills and you don't like, proving yourself and making your own thing. And the reason for that, and I want to tell a quick story about my Nike experience, really quick, personal story. So Nike was forcing everybody to work 90 hours a week, and everybody was getting really sick of it. And they put us all in a room because they knew we were getting sick of it. And they told everybody, get used to it. This is a .com culture. This was before the .com boom in 2000 or bust. And they said, if you don't like it, get used to it. That's normal. And half of them quit the next day. And one of the people that quit gave my name to the recruiter. And the recruiter called me while I was trying to make up for all the work that I had to do now because everybody else had lost and I had 2 young toddlers at home. I couldn't quit. And I said, I don't have time to talk to you. Can you give me, I said, don't even talk to me unless you can double. And he said, absolutely. Can you be in Dallas next week? And so he flew me to Dallas. I interviewed, I got the job. I actually got hired, in a wave of new college recruits, even though I was, much older than that. It was kind of fun, actually, because I got to hang out with them, go to training, everything. And that recruiter continued to keep access with me. And he would call me about once every 6 months or so and say, are you still happy in your job? Because I got another job at IBM doing something very similar. And you could go work at that job. I can get you that job and get you more money. And so the recruiter was constantly working on my behalf. He was a good guy. I really am sad that he got out of the recruiting business because it was like having your own agent, like a sports agent or a Hollywood agent. And they were working for me all the time, trying to find better opportunities for me while I focused on my craft and got really good at what I was doing. And I didn't have to constantly think about what are the other job opportunities. This person was doing it for me. I have the same situation.
I think so. That's like a headhunter. They work for the recruitee, not for the company.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that's the biggest difference. And I think that's something that you have to make a big difference about. The person that works for you instead of the company is the one you want to keep. The ones that are working for the company, they're there because they need the company needs to fill it. So that means that you're never going to be able to move up. You're never going to be able to move around. And that, to me, the difference that was explained to me, at least when I started, was that's a headhunter versus a recruiter.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
A headhunter works for you.
Yeah. A headhunter, whatever you want to call him. He called himself a recruiter.
Right.
And of course, everybody knows I work for Tech Systems now. And my recruiter calls me literally every month and says, how are things going? Do you have any people for me? And, actually genuinely cares about life and stuff. So I think that recruiters get a bad name. I've had so many bad experiences with recruiters through LinkedIn, such that I've dropped LinkedIn. I got rid of LinkedIn a year ago. I think LinkedIn is a disastrously bad company. I know a lot of people who get jobs through it and who know their friends through it and maintain contact, and that's fine. But I actually, Greg, one of my good friends that I met through Twitch as well, said he's never had LinkedIn, doesn't ever want it, and has no need for it, and has never been out of work. He's constantly got people at his door asking him for work. And if you do it right, your reputation is going to get out there, and you're going to get job offers. You're going to get people come to you. You're going to get headhunters coming to you. You're going to get, that one or two recruiters that you have a good relationship with. And I think, Tony Foss says, yeah, good recruiters are amazing. Yeah, and the thing I really like about having a good recruiter on your side, and we do talk about this in the beginner boost near the end of the entire series when we're starting to talk about getting a job with these new skills that you've just learned, and having that person work for you, who, by the way, they're doing it because they're good at selling people, helping you be sellable. Right. I mean, I actually met with one who checked with me to make sure my tie was looking good and everything, because they were so used to helping IT geeks be presentable. I was like, man, you don't need to tell me what kind of tie to wear and how to wear it. I mean, but these recruiters, I mean, that's their job. Their job is to schmooze, is to be good with, to create these personal relationships and create an atmosphere and to help build this trust atmosphere. They literally are your agents if you get a good one. And they will work, particularly if you're really good. I mean, if you're really good and you get the right agent working for you, they're constantly on the pavement. And like, are you happy? Because I got this job over here for an extra 20K from what you're making right now. And it's doing this and X and such, and it's using new technology. And we could place you over there. And then you're like, oh, yeah. And then they, by the way, having one of these people represent you helps you get over your own imposter syndrome, because their job is to see you for who you are and to craft your perception and your management and what you look like to people in a way that looks really good. And IT people in particular, pretty much every human, but IT people in particular are very bad at presenting their skills because it's easy for them. It's easy for them.
It's not a skill.
It's easy.
Don't look at you do every single day as a skill. You look at what you do.
No, you're like, well, it's easy. It's like, I don't think it is, man. And somebody else who's a recruiter is sometimes non-technical. Like, no, you don't get it, man. Do you have any idea how rare that is? That you can even do X or Y or Z. And I mean, compared to all the other people, I mean, you are like crazy, crazy rare. You need to understand your value, blah, 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 blah. And so they're like your little cheerleader. If you get a good one, they're like a cheerleader at the same time. They're looking at your thing. They're looking at you as they're helping you feel better. And by the way, if you ever get a chance to go to a tech conference, like, where they're recruiting people to hire, sometimes they used to do this in Portland. I haven't found one in Charlotte yet. I really want to go. I want to.
Seattle.
Do they have them?
Yeah.
Yeah. You just go there and you feel like a rock star walking around because everybody wants to hire you. They don't even know who you are, that they know that you could potentially be the next whoever, And so they treat you, and you treat everybody as a potential hire as if you're a superstar. And it just really pumps up your confidence, makes you feel good. And you end up coming home with a ton of free swag and stuff. And you can even take the day off. I used to take the day off at Nike at work, tell my manager I'm going to a job conference, and just to see what people are hiring for and what people are using. You can use it as kind of a reconnaissance mission as well to see what's going on.
I've gone to those and brought back people to work with.
Yeah.
Like, it's done the opposite. Like, met people that are looking for jobs and been like, wow, this is what I do, what my job too. If you're interested, let me grab your resume. Let me grab your number, whatever else, and I'll have one of our guys get a hold of you.
Yep. I think that's a big thing. Question here: do you think personal brands and presence in social media are good to get attention from recruiters? That's a tricky one.
It can be, especially if you're well known. If you're middle of the field, middle of the pack, it does you no good, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It would be much better to have a really good GitHub profile.
Yeah.
If you are somebody that people are going to for questions all the time, everything else, then yeah, it probably does help you because people are looking on that name.
Yeah. It depends on the type of thing you're doing. If you're presenting, absolutely, you need a GitHub profile. And now that you can put everything that you used to have in LinkedIn in a GitHub now, especially now that you have this special like landing page that kind of is an overview of who you are. In technology, I think no matter what, you have to have a great GitHub presence.
And this is something I used to present all the time.
Yeah.
I was actually a very big presenter way back in the middle 2000s, and I don't present anymore. I hated it even when I did it.
Yeah.
But still to this day, I have people that come up to me and will say, "We saw this presentation you did online. Are you interested because of that?" And it was, so that's great. But the other issue is that if you're not good at presenting, it makes you look really bad. It makes you look like you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I used to spend, before I would do a presentation, I would spend 6 months writing because I know I'm not good at that type of thing.
Yeah.
And so I'd have multiple people review it, multiple people go over it with me. So it's like I had the tech knowledge for it, but the way that you present it to people is different than how you learn.
Yeah. 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 And that's a big piece of it. The whole presentation thing. Yeah, it really does depend. I do think you need to manage your social media, but I want to be careful on this one because I think that I talk about it all the time. Front-end engineers in particular are really good at making great portfolios and everything and overly presenting themselves on Reddit and Stack Exchange and all these other things. Meanwhile, you've got really solid, crazy, amazing engineers who are virtually non-existent on the internet in terms of social media. And they're obviously capable and qualified for any. Dennis comes to mind, right? Last Miles comes to mind, who is a great streamer. He's building a rig over on his channel, and so I think that. So Tiny Foz says I've hired people where the decoding factor was seeing good code on GitHub. Would have found another way to vet them if they didn't have GitHub because not everyone has the luxury. Yeah. Yeah. And again, if somebody's introducing you to somebody else and then they're getting past that thing, and then the next thing is, well, show me your stuff. Most of the best code that I've ever written that had really significant impact on the enterprise happened at IBM, and I don't have any access to it, including the best fork bomb I ever wrote, and I can't show it to you. It's enterprise proprietary stuff. So
NDAs and PI are horrible thing in that regard.
Yeah, and it's really sad because I have to say, well, you just have to trust me. It was really awesome, and but then you can work on other stuff, and of course I've done that as passion projects. But even the best passion projects are not going to be as great as your magnum opus you did for some proprietary company if that's what you're doing. So yeah. The question: what's your take on generalist versus specialist? How do you know when you're spreading yourself too thin? This is such a great question. I feel this question in me all the time. Recently, even I went through this when I decided to eliminate some technologies from my stack, my personal skill stack. That's a play on words that I've named my company after. I think it's more important that you be the best at what you do than, and I mean, top of your game, the best, than it is to know a lot of things, unless you're an architect. So if your job, what? Go ahead.
I disagree.
Okay. Explain.
And here's the reason why. I think as an architect, you still have to be the best at what you do.
Yeah, okay.
And the best in everything that you're doing. Here's why. Now, I think that the reason for that is that I come from an old school mentality, and you kind of do too, Rob. But I don't believe an architect is something that you are able to just join out of college or out of getting,
I get you. Yeah, absolutely.
You can't be an architect until you have 20 years experience.
Right. When I was speaking architect, I was meaning someone who came up for the engineering ranks, learned all of that stuff, was the specialist for a very long time, and is the specialist in several things, and then has slowly gotten out of being the specialist on a specific thing. They're not working with it every day, perhaps, but they did work with it every day for a long time. Right. And then they're pulled in more into more meetings, et cetera, and they become a little bit less of a specialist and more of an SME who's being called in. And this is a thing I used to call manager suck, which is just, it's not really a bad thing. It's just, when I was at Nike, and you probably have experiences like this too, they start to recognize you as a subject matter expert, an SME. And so they want your opinion on everything. And what happens is you start getting, you're an engineer, you're getting paid to keep stuff running and make new stuff. And then they start pulling you into these meetings. And sometimes you'll get pegged as like a pocket specialist for a CTO or something. and they'll, you know, the CTO doesn't have any time to do anything, but they need a couple people that they really go to get, you know, to do the bullshit and tell them what's up. And so they'll identify them, and you got to be careful because they'll burn them out, and or else they'll take their ideas and then look at all the credit. I mean, that's another thing. So you have to decide at some point in your career whether you want to stay an engineer. And I had to fight back against, I mean, I actually took the IBM job because they have a title called Distinguished Engineer, which is total bullshit. It means that you have more patents and everything like that. But when I saw it, I had kind of maxed out my game at Nike, and I was like, okay, I want to make more money, and you can't make more money unless you go into management. I hate to say it. I mean, that's changed a lot lately, but I think it's still somewhat true. If you want to progress in your tech career, at some point you cross over into management, and you start presenting, or you start joining boards, and you end up maybe to be an architect, CTO, or something like that. And pretty soon you're so removed from the technology that you need your own team of specialists to help you do your job. And I've fought pretty hard to stay in the trenches and to not do that. Now, there are some rare cases where people who do both. And
so I think I am one of those rare cases.
Yeah.
Because I used to do it for startups.
Yeah. Yeah, and
so
those kind of, go ahead.
Yeah, my biggest thing was I would work through everything until I had a big enough team. And I'm talking, this is usually anywhere from 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
I would have a team that would be anywhere from 20 to 50 people under me.
Yeah.
And then I would go out and I would find my replacement myself. And I would hire them into a position that was under me, that would be just a BS title, whatever it may be. But I needed them to be there. And the reason being is that I would actually start having them run all my meetings. I'd have them start running everything. And what I would do is I would take on less and less work for myself, but I would deal more with the board. I would deal more with the CEO, the CFO, the CTO, whatever else.
Yeah.
And basically, I get to a point where I would actually walk into the CEO's office one day, and I would go, okay, so I'm quitting in 30 days. Here's your replacement. He's already been trained. And for the next 30 days, don't call me for everything. Call on him. If he can't do it, he calls me.
Yeah.
And I don't want to hear from you. You don't want my opinion because I'm going to be gone. This is the best way for you to go through that where I'm still available.
Yeah.
And it will get you to that next level. And the usual question I got was, why are you leaving? Because I am now bored.
I mean,
I have realized I have maxed out what I can do in my knowledge here, and I will not be a good employee.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we really could do a whole hour just on, I mean, the company that I work for, the startup internet service provider, it was one of these cases where the guy who's the engineer who started it held on to control of the company, and he was an absolute horrible executive, and everybody knew it. And he hated being an executive, and he was always trying to do the engineering things. And so the executive job role kind of went unfilled because he didn't have the presence of mind to say, hey, somebody come in and do this other stuff for me while I do this other thing. I actually think, I don't know, but I think that IBM Red Hat went through the same thing. The Red Hat president guy stepped down and said, no, I'll just be an advisor.
What? I knew that for a fact because I knew the president when it happened. It absolutely did.
Yeah.
When they moved to Red Hat Enterprise, yeah. That's exactly what happened. Is he realized they also had the board that basically talked him into realizing that he didn't have the knowledge. But he had the people around him that tell him, no, you don't have the knowledge. And he fought it for like a year and a half and finally went, okay, you're right, but I don't want to leave. So they went, that's fine. We'll make you another position.
We'll just give you another position.
It's not going to be running the day-to-day, and you're going to like it more. And I talked to him years later, and he's like, it was the greatest thing that ever happened. I loved my job again.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's that's kind of that's part of this. This is part of the question about whether to be a generalist or a specialist. It is somewhat related to the whole where you're going to end up later. I have read. I wish I could articulate it better. Somewhere I read about the secret to being permanently employable, and it had something to do with always being the absolute best at what you do, without exaggeration. In other words, picking one thing that you are way better than everybody else at and focusing on that thing and selling that thing to other people, because that's what's going to get you in the door. So it's going to get you hired. And then, but sometimes you can't always do that. You got to have, so it's better I think it's better to be, if you're trying to break into the industry, I think it's better to be a specialist, bottom line. Depending on the industry though. And if you're trying to become an intern, at a company and they want to mold you, then maybe they want you to be a generalist.
I don't call myself a specialist in anything.
Yeah.
Is that, I mean, and we worked together in projects before where people would always sit there and say, I'm the subject matter specialist at this. I'm really going, no, I'm not, but I do know more than everybody else here.
Yeah. And operations is really hard here because it's hard to specialize in anything in operations. I mean, but that said, I do think you should chop things. For example, I recently chopped Terraform from my list of skill stack stuff. I'm not interested in learning it at all. It's important to learn. What's that?
Is it because it doesn't do its job like it says at the very beginning?
I don't want to go there, but it's, there are certain things that I'm giving myself permission to not worry about not knowing in order to focus on it. I call it managing your mind share. You every day you're playing the stock market with your brain. You're like saying, where am I going to invest my time today? In my brain, what technologies am I going to invest my brain in learning and maintaining? And you only have so many dollars to invest, so many hours, whatever. And you can't learn it all. You can try, but physically, some people are so fast at learning that they have much capital to invest, but other people don't have that, and they have families and stuff. So you have to pick carefully what you're going to do with your time. What technology you're going to learn? Are you going to learn? If I spend all my time learning Ansible and Terraform and all that stuff, it's going to take away from time that I could learn Kubernetes raw, or set up on-prem storage clusters and CFFS and NFS and NIS and all those kind of things, those sysadmin kind of things that I want to do. And God help me if I want to actually do anything with security, because that is an entirely different field. It's related somewhat, but it's like now I have to, figure out how to break into this stuff and everything.
And that's also back to the thing we were talking about yesterday was health.
Yeah.
I can speak from experience. I'm pretty sure you can too.
Yeah.
And you can ask Rob, I worked about 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I would do it for years on end. And, I got married when I was 30 at the time, I think it was. No, 28 or something like that. And it killed my marriage without a doubt. And I look back now and I realized that when I was younger, I had to choose, just like you're saying, you only have so much time to spend, and I chose it on my work.
Yeah.
And so you have to decide, what do you want to be? Do you want to be that family man, everything else, or do you want to work when you're early on and then decide later on to have the family?
Yeah.
But you only have so many hours in the day, and you will burn yourself out very quickly. And if you burn out, it burns out everybody around you.
Yeah, it does. And one of the dangers is as well, particularly when I was Mormon, when I was working 90 hours at Nike, that was when my it's a sad story, but my wife at the time, she actually, we were supposed to go out to see my family. We have a dinner. And on the way there, I said, they paged me. They want me to come in and at least say something or pick something up. I picked something up, and they tried to get me to stay there and to just drop me off and then have her drive the kids off to the thing. And my she's now my ex-wife, but my wife went ballistic. Yeah, she went in there and yelled at the top of her lungs at everybody in there. And I had to make it, because we really pushed it to the maximum. My wife was raising 2 young toddlers by herself at home and barely ever saw me because I was working 9 hours a week trying to push out Nike ID or whatever the fuck. And, I said it right there I think I said, and I was Mormon, so for me to swear was a big deal. And I said, fuck it. And I walked out. And directly against my manager. And the next day I thought I was going to get fired. And instead of getting fired, my manager, it's a true story, my manager brought me in the room and said, we understand that you need a new transmission for your car, because it was one of the many things that my ex-wife launched on this huge tirade. And so they said, we want to pay for it. So,
funny story. I was at a startup. I had the same thing happen where I had to cancel. One of my best friends, actually, and her kids, I think, had been to Disneyland for their birthday. And I had to cancel it we were supposed to go on Friday, and I had to cancel it on Thursday because we had a huge project. And I felt like absolute crap and everything else, but I did it because the company needed it. But the company, actually, the owner of the company came up to me on Monday, handed me a card, said, I know what you did this weekend for the company, and I really appreciate it. Here's, he's like, you're supposed to go to Disneyland, all that type of stuff. He had kids, so he kind of understood. But they bought me new tickets to Disneyland with all the park pass, everything else.
Wow.
And he's like, because I made the company like $40,000 that week.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's like no brainer.
Like, I need you to do it, but he's like, you could have the entire week off, whatever you need. Go take care of the kids, everything else. And I told him, I was like, and I stayed with the company for another 2 years because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had a great manager. This manager was not the best, but I have other great managers who, I got paged and had to go in late nights, and that was not so much an issue because everybody's asleep. But they would, she would send, he would send roses to my wife after that for taking me away and stuff. So, but yeah, you have to decide. I mean, some jobs like doctor jobs, I mean, they've had to deal with these things their whole life. So you got to decide how much you want to be involved in and what you're going to learn and whether you're going to be on the top of your game or you're going to be mediocre and be able to do the minimum, these are tough decisions. These are really tough decisions. No easy answer here. Everybody's different. But when you're young and you're trying to break in and you got your health and you haven't really got ties down to people and stuff like that, that's the time to just, I think, to be really aggressive in your personal learning plan and, your networking and all of that stuff, because you are at that moment where you're really breaking in, and the tough part about that is you might not end up spending any time finding a spouse if that's what you want. And so then you'll end up, in a great job, and you won't have made any, you won't give any attention to your personal life, which, may or may not be somebody that you want to, live with or whatever. And that's up to you. Everybody's got a different take on that. So hopefully that'll help you.
Hey guys, I appreciate the talk, but I have the little one begging me to take her to the park.
Yeah, I also have to go. We are overdue as well. So
great talk, but thanks everybody and have a great night.
Yeah, see you, Billy. Okay, and Mr. Matt, how are you doing? Are you like?
I'm just here listening to the legends, guys.
Well, there are quite a few.
I'm here to learn.
Stories going on. I love it. I love having you here to listen, and there's so many lessons learned. So many lessons learned. Some good ways and some in bad ways. Thank you for being here, everybody. We're gonna go ahead and stop the YouTube video. So, goodbye, YouTube. Cheers to you.
Bye bye.
And we'll see you tomorrow.